Again, we will start watching your breath for a few moments mindfully. Then we can think, may our coming here together become meaningful, become cause and conditions to transform and change our attitude, our mind, our actions, behavior. That are more beneficial to others and oneself. And may it become cause and condition to actualize and fully develop all the lamrim realizations, especially highest level of the awakening mind of both chitta and wisdom realizing emptiness. May it become cause and conditions to attain fully awakened state, so we can be more benefit and help to each and every sentient beings. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create to listen to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create to listen to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Jodang Zoge Zonama Chanju Bado Dani Dagi Shusegi Besonam Dola Penje Sangye Do Barash. So last week, we discussed about cultivating the bodhicitta mind, and having cultivated the bodhicitta mind, engage in the bodhisattva practices. And mainly the bodhisattva practice are the six perfection, the practice of six perfections. And within the six perfections, last week we spoke about the first perfection of Paramedic, the perfection of generosity, by following the verse number 101. And today we are in 102 verse number. And next verse discuss about the practice of the second perfections, or Paramita, which is the perfection of moral discipline or ethical discipline, okay? And if we, before we go more detail, if we kind of read the verse there, it says, I seek your blessings to complete the perfection of morality by not transgressing the bounds of Pratamoksha, Bodhisattva, and Tantric vows, even in the course of my life, accumulating virtuous qualities and accomplishing the purpose of sentient beings. So, the perfections of, first of all, again, there's a difference between the practice of moral discipline and the paramita of moral discipline, okay? Even the non-bodhisattvas, such as those who are on individual liberations on the path, and arhat, they have a strong practice of moral discipline, but still that practice is not the practice of paramita moral discipline, because that practice is not supported by the bodhicitta mind, okay? So it has to be, in order to become the paramita or perfections of moral discipline, that practice has to be supported by the bodhicitta mind, bodhicitta motivations, one thing, and so. And so what is the moral discipline here is, out of bodhicitta motivations, then trying to reverse the thought to hurt and harm others along with the basis of that thought, okay? That is so is more of, changing or reversing the thought to hurt and harm others along with the basis of that thoughts driven by the bodhicitta motivation. So that would be the moral discipline, so it is to abandon the thought to hurt and harm others, as well as any kind of physical, verbal, and mental actions that can hurt and harm others due to that hurtful and harmful thoughts. So so let me maybe before that we'll go more details. Maybe let us a little bit kind of think about the benefit of engaging in such practices, the moral discipline. We have to understand, such as the practice of moral discipline or taking a precept vows, are not something kind of being forced by outside. It's a self-discipline. It's a self-discipline, and we engage into such discipline because it protects us and others. It protects others and oneself from being hurt and harm and pain and sufferings. Okay. So it's not like a normal, like in our worldly world, we have a lot of those laws. If you break law, then you will be punished by the law. And here is nothing like that, If you break, then you suffer, that is all. There's no one outside, someone who is punishing you. Okay? If we act in certain action, certain behavior, then definitely it will hurt and harm others, and also it will hurt and harm, and we experience the pain and suffering. And therefore, nobody wants suffering, nobody wants pain, and so therefore we try to stop any act that can bring pain to either others, oneself, both, you know. The great Indian master Nagarjuna said, you know, the moral discipline is like the very foundations of all other practice. Just like the earth is the foundation for all the plants and living beings. Without the earth, none of the living beings, none of the plants will be able to survive in that there. So earth is the very foundation that give birth to all different kind of plants, different kind of living beings. Same way, the moral discipline is like earth that give the foundation, the birth to all different spiritual realizations. All the different spiritual realizations grow, arise from that practice of moral discipline. And also it's the foundations for, you know, the happiness of this life, happiness of future, you know, higher birth, happiness of liberations, and happiness of fully enlightenment, you know. If we are able to live our life more ethical, more disciplined, we'll get less trouble. We'll get less trouble in our life, this life. We will have less conflict with others. We will get less trouble, and therefore less trouble, less conflict, mean more peace, more happiness, more joy in our life. You know, nobody wants to get in trouble, but sometimes we get in trouble. And because of not being able to keep some of those, to be able to practice some of those moral, ethical discipline. And, you know, also, you know, when you engage in a lot of those unethical, unmoral actions or behavior, you know, that can bother our mind for a long time. You know, that can bother our mind. You know, sometimes, you know, there can be a lot of fear that your unethical, your unmoral can be kind of exposed by others. People might know about it, you know, kind of fear, worry, anxiety, sometimes feeling of embarrassment, shame, sometimes feeling of guilt. All this could bother throughout our life. And especially, it can really affect us at the time of death when we look back in our life. You know, at the time of death, when we look back our whole life, what have I done in my life? Even you don't want, your mind will go there. At that time, your mind will start to think, because you know that it is coming to the end. So you reflect on your life. And then, you know, when you try to reflect, then a lot of thoughts can arise, a lot of things that unethical, unmoral things that we might have done in our life. And that can flash and that can bother you And that can lead to a lot of different negative emotions that can disturb your mind. And so, instead of being able to kind of have more peaceful at that stage, your mind can be a lot of disturbance. And because we remember and recollect many of those things, and so, it can bother throughout our life. On the other hand, if we have lived our life more moral, more, ethical, we have less shame, less embarrassment, less regret, less guilt, So when we have less of that, our mind is more peaceful, less disturbed, So more peaceful, more happy. And also we can be more, transparency, more honest, because you have nothing to hide. On the other hand, when we have done something unethical, unmoral, then it's hard to be transparent. It's hard to be honest, And so in order to hide things, then we keep on lying and lying. And so, and so that kind of, that it can have so much negative impact in our life in so many different ways, even in just one life, even just this lifetime, throughout this lifetime. So therefore, living a moral, ethical life is a cause of our more peaceful and happy life in this life. And definitely, is a cause for higher rebirth, as the Buddha said, as the Nagarjuna said in all the Buddhist scriptures, they say, main cause of the higher rebirth and better rebirth is the practice of moral discipline. That is the main cause, And then, liberations, the happiness of liberation can be achieved by overcoming all the afflictive emotions, all the delusions. And all the afflictive delusion can be overcome only by cutting the root of all those delusions. That is the fundamental ignorance. And the only way to cut that fundamental ignorance is the wisdom realizing the ultimate truth. And in order to have a special insight that realizes the ultimate truth, then one needs to have a strong foundations or practice of meditative concentration or shamatha. And in order to have a strong practice of shamatha, you need to have a strong foundation of moral discipline. And therefore, when Buddha talked about Four Noble Truths, in order to achieve the cessations or the liberations, you have to follow the path. And what is the path? The path is, 8 noble paths. If it's kind of summarized, then it's 3 higher training. There are higher training of wisdom and shamatha and moral discipline. And the moral discipline is the very foundation from which basis of that foundation, you develop the shamatha, and with the tool of the shamatha, then you develop the wisdom. And so therefore, even from that point of view, then again, you see the importance of moral discipline as the very root and foundation of the path, the practice. And then in order to achieve the happiness of fully enlightenment, we talk about in order to achieve fully enlightenment, then we have to engage into another path, 10 bhumis, in order to engage those paths, then you need to have a strong practice of 6 perfections, and the practice of moral discipline is one of the 6 perfections, the practice of moral discipline. So without perfecting and without completing those 6 perfections, there is no way you can achieve enlightenment. fully enlightenment. And so therefore, again, in order to achieve fully enlightenment, you need to have a strong practice of the moral discipline. So therefore, how this practice is the cause for many different levels of happiness. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, the moral discipline is really protecting others and yourself. For example, give you one small example of, such as, the practice of moral discipline is restraining or refraining from 10 non-virtuous actions, for example, which means refraining from taking the life of others, from stealing, from engaging in sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, meaningless kind of idle gossips, coefficient of craving mind, ill will mind, wrong views for those are, for example, if we take one example with that, such as taking the life of others. By engaging in practice to restrain and refraining from taking the life of others, you protect someone. You protect another being from receiving harm from yourself. You protect them. You protect them from the receiving suffering and pain and harm from you. You protect them. Not only to protect them, you protect yourself. From karmic point of view, if you take someone's life, you create a karma and cause to your life to be taken away by others in the futures. So you're protecting yourself in that way. Also, even in this life, you are protecting yourself because, if you take someone's life, you can be in danger, You can end up, in prisons. In many other different ways, or, other taking revenge on you. You take someone's life and their friends, families might try to take your life. So it protect others, is protect yourself. And that is same with all different, just to give one, that is one example, but you can see that with all others, is basically is protecting others and protecting yourself immediately and also long-term. Long-term, you protect from creating negative karma to receive similar result for yourself in the futures. So basically, if we kind of, we can explain in so many different ways, but in a way, in a short way, is really about protecting others and yourself. It's really the moral discipline, ethical discipline is all about protecting yourself and others. Also, the practice of moral discipline help us to, open our heart to develop more love, compassion, and the bodhicitta mind, sense of concerns, caring for others and others' well-beings, So those are some of the the benefit or reason, some of the benefit or the reason why we need to practice the moral discipline, why it's important to practice the moral discipline. And then, of course, we talk about what the moral discipline is a little bit, and then in terms of, divisions, like in Buddhism, as you are aware, we like numbers very much, so there's numbers, So as we just saw as we just read the one verse, talk about 3 types of moral discipline. The moral discipline of restraining or refraining from misdeeds. That's the first one. And second one is the moral discipline of accumulating virtuous qualities. And third one is the morality of engaging into the well-being of others. In this, I think in the verse, it is given accomplishing the purpose of sentient beings. I guess that was what it says. So basically those 3 kind of moral discipline. And within that first one, refraining from the restraining or refraining from misdeeds, then in the verse, it talks about taking the vows or precept or pratamosha vows or both set of vows and tantric vows. So it fall into those 3, So basically, why we take those different level of the vows or precepts, why we take those different level of the, of course, there are many different, within the pratamosha vows, or the precepts, there are many different level. There are 3 kind of vows that are for lay people, and there are 5 different vows for the ordained one, novice, ordination, full ordinations, for the both male and females, and then for the lay practitioners, they're male and female who take the 5 lay vows, or 5 lay vows, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, however you feel, for the rest of your life. And then there are like, the 8 vows, similar vows that we take during a minor precept, but that people can take for, day, for a day or weeks or months, or years. So that vows, it doesn't have to be lifetime. You can take for days, weeks, months, years, And then on top of that, of course, certain individuals have taken both of vows. And on top of that, certain individuals, practitioners have taken tantric vows. So whatever different type of the vows, they all are a means to protect ourselves, protect our mind. The bodhisattva's vows are to protect our mind from being too selfish. Okay? The bodhisattva vows are to help and protect ourselves from being too selfish, too self-centeredness. The tantric vows are to support and help us to have impure visions or, grasping of the objects. To protect us from the ignorance, that grabs and cling to the objects as inherently, and as well as from, all these impure appearance, visions, and so forth. And of course, the pratamosha vows are to protect, as I mentioned, to protect, physically, verbally, and mentally, from hurting and harming others and oneself. And of course, when we are protecting our mind from being too selfish, not only we are protecting ourselves, but when you are protecting from that, we are protecting others, because when we are selfish, we hurt and harm others. When you are less selfish, we hurt and harm others less. Same with ignorance. When you're protecting your mind from ignorance, not only we are protecting ourselves, we are protecting others. Because again, a lot of time we hurt and harm others out of ignorance. A lot of time we hurt and harm others, we create more pain and suffering in others' life out of ignorance. So by protecting that, then is protecting not only our mind and ourselves, also protecting others as well. And so therefore, so that is why we take those different precepts and vows, is to protect our mind as well as to protect others and oneself from receiving any harm, receiving any suffering, pain due to our disturbed minds, and our disturbed mind and our harmful actions, whether it's mental, whether it's verbal, whether it's physical, or all of them, So even we have not taken any of the vows or precept, even we have not taken any kind of precept and vows, at least we try to, live our life. At least we try to live our life by restraining and refraining from 10 non-virtuous actions and engage in 10 virtuous actions. That is the very kind of, basic minimum level that we try to, even if we cannot take all these different level of, or layer or level of different vows and precepts, but at least we try to live our life by following our life by restraining from 10 non-virtuous actions and engage in 10 virtuous actions. Okay. One of the engage in 10 virtuous actions, is the opposite of 10 non-virtuous actions. Instead of taking life, we save life. Okay, saving life. Instead of taking life, we save life. Instead of stealing, we practice generosity, giving, and charity. Instead of sexual misconduct, we try to be, more faithful, and honest, And instead of lying, we try to be truthful. Instead of harsh speech, we try to use kind and gentle speech. Instead of divisive speech, we try to use more reconciliation speech, where instead of dividing, we try to use speech to bring together. When there is a divisions in society, within the community, within the families, instead of using divisive speech that could divide them even further, we try to use speech where we can bring them together. Instead of using kind of, meaningless, idle gossips that increase our delusions, we try to use meaningful speech to help to develop more virtuous thoughts and mind instead of more non-virtuous negative thoughts, And then definitely, instead of having so much coffee-season and craving, we try to be more content, happy, satisfied. Instead of ill will feeling, we try to have loving kindness and compassion. Instead of a wrong view, then we try to have more, wisdom, right view. So those are the 10 virtuous actions that we try to engage as much as possible and try to live on the basis of those 10 virtuous actions and reframe 10 non-virtuous actions. So that is the first level of the moral discipline. That is a restraining, reframing from misdeeds, okay? That is the first level of moral discipline, okay? And that kind of, while we restrain and reframe such non-virtuous actions and try to engage just virtuous actions, but always, because it is a bodhisattva practice and it is a bodhisattva's moral discipline, always those practice being motivated by the bodhicitta mind, and always trying to restrain and refrain from watching and being aware, watching our mind all the time. And whenever we have any kind of selfish attitude, selfish centeredness, motivation arising, trying to refrain and restrain from having such a selfish attitude, selfish motivations, self-centered motivations for engaging such virtues. So restraining, reframing from, because that is one of the main bodhisattvas moral discipline is reframing, restraining or reframing from having selfish motivations. Instead, we try to have bodhicitta motivations for whatever practice, whatever virtues we engage into. One question interesting might be, at the moment we're all listening now, maybe our mind is not in a very negative state of thought, at least during this time, because we are trying to study Dharma, and paying attention to it, So we are not killing at the moment. We are not stealing. We are not in a sexual misconduct. We are not lying at this point, harsh speech, all of that. So are we practicing moral discipline now? All of that. Are we creating the virtues of practice of moral discipline of not killing, not stealing, no sexual misconduct, and so forth at this point? What do you think so? Definitely we are not doing that, but are we? Definitely I'm not killing, I'm not stealing at this point. Am I practicing the moral discipline, not killing, not stealing at the moment? Am I creating virtues of engaging moral discipline or not killing, not stealing at the moment? That is interesting questions. If not engaged in the action itself is a moral discipline and you are engaging, then most of the animals, when they are not killing, or not doing all of that, are they engaged in moral discipline? Especially, yeah, you see some animals who doesn't even kill anyone, you know, who rely on plants, you know, who doesn't even eat others animals, you know. So I think the importance, there are a few factors. It is not just the absence of that actions is the moral discipline. Do you get it? It's not just the absence of that kind of actions is the moral discipline. For example, the absence of not taking life, the absence of not stealing itself, that action itself is not the moral discipline, you know. But having the thought not to hurt and harm others, and with that thought, then not engage in such actions or the absence of such actions due to that kind of thoughts will be more of the practice. Yeah, and I don't know this. I seems to see. There are two, no, because we don't have bodhicitta motivations. For a moral discipline, of course, we don't need to have bodhicitta motivations all the time. But if we are talking about the moral discipline of perfection of moral discipline, of course, then that would be, you need to have bodhicitta motivations, as we already discussed. The other question from Geshe-la, does it depend on whether the individual has taken the vows to refrain from those things? Yeah, I think that questions is the, and you raised the questions, which I was going to touch on that. Yeah, that is one thing. The difference is, you know, if we have taken the vows, okay? If we have taken the vows to not to kill, not to steal, not to engage sexual misconduct, all of those different vows, if you have made the commitments and promise and determination, and by taking those vows, because you don't want to harm others with that kind of motivation, we take those vows. And when you take those vows, so then because of that vows, then even you don't have that mind all the time, you continue to engage in the practice of moral discipline, you continue to create merit all the time, you continue to create the virtues all the time. And so that is the difference. Once we made that dedications and the commitments by taking the vows and the precepts not to engage in such actions and behavior driven by, you know, the bodhicitta motivations, driven by the wish to not to hurt and harm anyone. And so therefore that I'm going to take such precept vows. From that on, by that, even you don't have, you know, the mind to restrain and refrain all the time, because it is based on that, and it is function, that vow is still that alive and not broken, and so therefore you continue to create the virtues and the merit of restraining and refraining from such immoral or unethical actions or behavior. So yeah, so that is the one of the benefit of taking the vows. That is one of the benefit of taking the vows, you know, and that is why some of the, you know, some of the teachers, you know, encourage the people to take vows, you know, even when sometimes it's not so easy to be able to keep them purely all the time, because there is so much benefit of having taken it and continue to create the virtues and the merit by having that, taking the precept and having that vow and precepts. So anyway, so that is that is the first level of the vows. Okay. Not the vows, the moral discipline. The second moral discipline, you know, the accumulating of virtuous qualities. In other words, you know, on the basis of Bodhisattva's vows and Bodhicitta motivations, you know, then one engage in any kind of virtues, you know, that will support our path, that will support our path, that will support our path, that path that brings benefit to others and oneself, and the path that try to reduce the pain and suffering to others and oneself. You know, so on the basis of both, on the foundations or the basis of both sort of vows, you know, and then, you know, engage in the other virtues, such as, you know, such as making offering to the holy objects, you know, such as merit field, you know, the Buddha Dhamma Sanghas, you know, making a generosity to those who are in needs, you know. So engaging such virtues from the foundation or basis of the both, Bodhisattva's vows, you know. So then become that these moral disciplines, or, you know, paying homage, respect by, you know, whether we are kind of doing prostrations, whether we are doing circumambulations to the holy objects such as the temples, stupas, you know, statues, whatever, you know, making offerings, you know, whatever offering that we can make, you know, whether it's a waterfall offerings, whether it's offering of water, whether it's offering of flowers, incense, light, whatever food, whatever different offerings that we can make to those holy objects, you know, or studying the Dhamma, you know, by reading, listening, reflecting, contemplating on the Dhamma, meditating, you know. Or engaging in, you know, any of the other 6 perfections or the 10 perfection practices. So all these different practice of the virtues, with that kind of Bodhisattva's vows on the basis or foundation of that, then those become include within the practice of this second moral discipline, accumulating the virtues qualities or engage in the virtues, you know, all those different virtuous practices that we engage into physically, verbally, mentally, you know. And then third one, you know, the moral discipline of benefiting others. Here it says accomplishing the purpose of sentient beings in the verse, you know. So again, from the foundation and the basis of the Bodhisattva's vows, on the basis of that Bodhisattva vows, on the foundation of that Bodhisattva vows, then trying to help and benefit sentient beings in whatever help benefit that we can do, such as the practice of engaging for means of gathering, helping or gathering disciple or sentient beings, such as giving, practicing generosity, and then after you practice a generosity of whatever their needs are, then trying to giving encouragement, with a encouragement, nice, pleasant, speech, saying nice things, giving some kind of encouragement, confidence in their practice, and then, leading them to the path in the practice, leading them into the path in the practice, through whatever way you can, leading them on the path. And then, not only trying to help and lead them to the path, trying to practice yourself what you are trying to lead them others to, then only we can really help and benefit others more, basically walking the talk, we tell others you have to be patient, you have to be compassionate, and we are impatient, it will not inspire the other persons, you tell me to be patient and you are impatient, then it doesn't really touch that person. It might make them even more angry because they feel you are hypocritic, pretending. What do you mean you can be impatient and you tell me to be patient? They might have even more resistance. And sometimes that is what is, unfortunately and very sadly, that is what happened in the world now. There are a lot of people in the world, big populations of the world, who have very strong resistance to any kind of religious or spiritual path. They don't want to do anything with something that is spiritual, something that is religious. They don't want to hear anything that is spiritual or religious. Why did they end up in being that state? Why? Why did they end up being that state? And it's a big chunk of populations. More and more people becoming like that. Why? Because the very people who are supposed to be the practitioners, and especially the teachers of those different spiritual path and the religious path, what they preach and what they do is opposite. What they preach and what they do is opposite. And people are done with that. People doesn't feel those teachings, those messages, does not mean anything if the very person who is saying that does the opposite. And also that could have also, even in your families, you have to lead by example, not by saying. If you want your families to embrace the Dharma, you have to show them path, on the path by your example. You don't have to say so much. They will just follow it. Sometimes what happens, we don't actually practice, but we keep on telling them, oh, you have to be compassionate, you have to be patient, or we give so much, what you call preaching, you know, and they want to close their ear, you know, they don't want to hear anymore. It makes them even more angry sometimes. But if we say something, if you practice, then they will listen more. They will listen more. They are willing to listen because they know you practice. You are not always saying to them, but you are actually practicing. Because you are actually practicing, that give them more kind of more open their mind to kind of listen to that. And so that is you know, I think that is a very, very kind of important practice. We all have to, including myself, we all have to do, you know. And that is why personally, you know, of course, this is my job as a teacher. I have to teach and say here, and just whatever is said in the teachings, I try to read it, I try to share it. But normally in my life, you know, whether it is my family, friends, I don't say much unless they ask me, unless there's interest, unless from their side. And most of you who have known me over the years, same thing. You probably know, you know, my nature, is, you know, if someone have some questions about their practice, they want to discuss, they want to get some of my opinions, suggestions, help. I've always been there to provide that. But normally I don't go and say, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to practice this, you have to practice. That is because how can I go and say that when I myself, you know, is not there, you know? So that is my approach. Okay, different people have different approach, and that is more or less of my approach. And but of course, if anyone have any questions about their practice, and if they need help, I've always been willing to give the time and to help if I can. I know sometimes I cannot, but whatever I know, whatever I can, I try to do that. So anyway, that this conversation comes because of this four means of helping and benefiting others, you know, and then, you know, also in the lamrims and many others. Many others teachings, they talk about 11 ways of benefiting others, you know. And most of lamrim, you know, you don't see them, what are those 11? They just give the number, you know. But if you read the Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on the both set of vows, then he will give those 11, not elephant, 11, number 11 way of helping and benefiting others. Okay. Again, those numbers are just it doesn't mean there is only 11 way of helping and benefiting others. There are hundreds, thousands, millions of way of helping and benefiting others. So how come that just 11, you know? It's just that, you know, in different sutras, Buddha has mentioned to help others in different situations, you know. In some sutras, he talks about helping and benefiting homeless persons. In some sutras, he talks about helping and benefiting sick persons who is sick. When someone is sick, why we should help, how to help. Buddha himself was helping when the monks got sick, he was looking after them, all of that. And then in other sutras, he talks about helping, those who are in the needs. So, so some of the later Indian masters kind of collected from different sources of sutras Buddha's describe, and then they put in a number, 11 numbers. So it doesn't mean it is only those 11 way to help and benefit. Those are just a kind of few example of how to help and how to benefit others. So those are the three type of the moral discipline. Okay. So we talk about why we need to practice the moral discipline, the benefit, the importance of the practice. We talk about what the practice is, what the moral discipline means, and then three different type of the moral discipline that is described, So then, coming to the practice itself, this being a bodhisattva practice. So first, again, with like any practice, motivation is very important. Right intention, the motivation is very important. So when we practice here, the moral discipline, we need to cultivate the bodhicitta motivations as much as possible. The bodhicitta motivations, to have the bodhicitta motivations, as I mentioned at the very beginning, whether your practice of restraining or refraining from taking the life of others, whether that becomes bodhisattva practice or not, it depends on the motivation. If you have the bodhicitta motivation, then this practice becomes bodhisattva practice. Then it becomes perfection of the moral discipline. Otherwise, it just becomes a moral discipline, but not the bodhisattva moral discipline. So of course, it can be moral discipline, but not the bodhisattva moral discipline. But so you need to have the bodhicitta motivations, and that make this practice, bodhisattva practice, perfection of moral discipline and cause of enlightenment, and it becomes benefit to each and every sentient beings. Then, of course, the practice itself is restraining, refraining from those misdeeds and engaging in the virtues and helping and benefiting others. And then when you try to practice, moral discipline is part of the practice of method, okay? In all the Buddhist practice, we can kind of, divide into two: the practice of wisdom and the practice of method. The practice of wisdom and practice of method. And the practice of moral discipline fall into the practice of method. But when we practice, whatever practice, is important to try to bring both method and wisdom together. If we try to bring both practice together, the practice becomes much more stronger, much more powerful, effective. And so when we practice here, then we try to bring the method, the wisdom in, because it's a method, so we try to bring on the wisdom into it. And so then when we practice the wisdom into it, then we try to see, the objects with whom we are practicing moral discipline. For example, restraining, refraining from taking the life of someone, So someone, by looking and by understanding that they are empty of inherent existence, the very practice, the practice of moral discipline itself, the practice itself, the restraining from the hurting and harming others, that practice itself is also not truly or inherent existence. The person, yourself, who is practicing that practice, the moral discipline, you yourself is not truly inherent existence. So then trying to see yourself who is trying to practice the moral discipline, the practice itself, moral discipline, and in what relation the objects to whom you are practicing, with whom object that you are practicing moral discipline, that object, all of them are empty of truly an inherent existence. So we try to see that. And when you do that, then you bring the wisdom. And then when you bring the wisdom, then the method and wisdom together, union of wisdom and method together. And then that can act as an antidote towards both obscurations afflictive emotions and knowledge. So that is important. And also by seeing, the practice itself is like illusions, nothing to hold on. The object itself is like illusions, nothing to hold so strongly, too tightly. The practitioner yourself is also like illusions, so unreal. There's nothing to really object to hold on, And so again, they all are non-inherently existent, non-truly existent. They do not exist as real as it appears to our mind. And they all are like an illusion. They all are like a dream. So we try to apply that wisdom part into the practice. If you do that, then we don't get attached to the practice itself. We don't get attached to yourself. You don't get attached to the practice itself. You don't get attached to the object of the practice itself. And also you don't become too proud and arrogant. Oh, I'm a great practitioner. I'm a great practice of moral discipline, ethical discipline. Practice being a very moral and ethical is great, but when you become proud about it and arrogant about it, then again, you ruin it. There is a saying in Tibetan, when you walk on the, sand, you have the footprint, and then footprint is kind of erased by your hand. And there is no more footprint anymore because the footprint has been erased by your hand. So you create some virtues, but then that has been destroyed next by something else. Do you get it? Yeah, I have to say, do you get it? Because each time I said it, I make some money. Yeah. Rick, are you listening? Each time I say that, I earn $5. So so I have to remember to say more often, so. So, that is what happens with a lot of our practice. When we don't apply the wisdom, we get a lot of time attached to our practice. And a lot of time we become kind of unhealthy pride and arrogant. Oh, I'm a very moral. That person is immoral. I'm very ethical. That person is very unethical. sense of looking down on others, sense of feeling of putting down others. Oh, those people are unethical, unmoral. So when that happens, then it is not good. It's great that you are ethical. You practice ethic. Great, you are moral. But that shouldn't make you feel you are special and others are less. And that also can happen. That can happen everything. Because we are more generous, then we see, oh, that person is so stingy, so ungenerous. Or because we are more compassionate, or that person is so uncompassionate, unkind. And kind of some level of looking down, putting down. And so that is not, that is not where we want to lead our practice towards that. Our practice shouldn't make us feel we are more superior than others and others are less than ourselves. But it can happen. It can happen, even though we don't want to be that, but it happens. And sometimes when we don't apply the wisdom, but if you apply the wisdom, then there's nothing really to be attached about your practice. There's nothing really, object to be attached. There's nothing really to be so arrogant or pride or feel supreme and all of that. In relation to that, there is a prayer to Maitreya Bodhisattva by Buddha Shakyamuni, where it says, "May I never transgress the discipline of morality and free myself from pride. Since having pride in the appearance of morality and purity, one is without morality." I wish to accomplish the perfection of morality. So that is in that prayer by the Buddha, that is clearly mentions when you have pride because of your moral discipline, then you are without the morality. Then your morality has been your practice of morality has been kind of tainted or diluted and polluted in some way. So bringing the wisdom part, emptiness part, the wisdom part is such a helpful to not to have such a attachment and pride in our practice. So trying to apply that as much as possible with all the practice, especially when we become a little bit aware that our mind is becoming a little bit kind of pride, arrogant, then immediately trying to apply the wisdom, trying to apply the, by seeing our practice is empty of exist from its own side, So there's no object to be really proud about. There's no basis to be prideful about. There's no basis to hold on and to be so proud about, so. And same thing when we find out we are being attached to that, same thing, There's nothing to be so attached. There's no basis because there's nothing from its own side. So therefore there's nothing to hold on. There's nothing to grasp on. There's no object to be so attached to, There's no basis to be attached to. So, and so through applying that, become helpful and more meaningful, more helpful, more powerful, more beneficial. Then with all the other practice, dedications, again, I think we already spoke also last week, again, dedicating that, like, what Lama Soba always used to do, dedicating with the wisdom again, due to all of the merit that oneself and others have created, which are empty from its own side, empty from its own side. May I, which is empty from its own side, achieve enlightenment, which is empty from its own side, for the benefit of all sentient beings, which is empty from its own side. So again, by doing that, then again, also we don't get attached to the dedication itself, the virtues of the dedication itself. So again, letting go of any kind of attachment to that, grasping to that, so we try to, of course, we used to do that in all our sessions, but in recent time, I have not done that, just to kind of save a little time, and also, yeah. But individually, you try to do as much as possible. Every day when you do dedications, at least one extensive dedication in the evenings, even you can't do dedications, extensive dedication each time, and even you cannot do extensive motivation each time, in the morning, you try to do extensive motivation for the day. Okay, bodhicitta motivation for the day, And then each evening, you try to do a extensive dedication for all the virtues, all the practice, all the positive things that you have done throughout the day. So you try to, in the middle, you can do kind of short motivation, short dedications, different virtues, different practice that you do, but at least we try to do one extensive dedication in the evening and one extensive motivation in the morning. So, so that is how we can apply. Hopefully that translates into 5 infinity. Yeah, I think I have sent my bill, but I haven't got the. He hasn't paid me so far. So next time I will send with interest. So I think that is more or less for today, I guess. If there is any questions, I don't know if there is anything that I need to discuss more. Yeah, and another prayer that you often see, is another prayer that is, there is, may the moral discipline be free of faults. May the moral discipline be pure. May our practice of moral discipline be without pride. May one perfect the practice of moral discipline. So again, in many of those different prayers that you see, it kind of comes about the pride, and because that could happen quite easily for a lot of people. So any comments, questions? Geshe-la, could you please remind us which vows continue from life to life? Like both of the vows is that continue life after life, because when you take the both of vows, we take for until we achieve enlightenment, Whereas the Pratigmoksha vows, we take the vows for as long as I live, for a lifetime. So, but the Bodhisattvas vows, you take, it goes life after life. Because when we take it until I achieve enlightenment. So. And so therefore renewing is good, because even though we might have taken before, but we don't know, whether we have taken in the past life or not. So, but still we can take, renew all the time. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Geshe-la?
Yes, please.
Can you talk a bit more about the difference between an extensive dedication and a less extensive?
Extended dedications, you have to do 1 hour.
Will I get paid for that?
Extensive dedication, for example, we can dedicate for the long life of the gurus and all their wishes to be fulfilled. Then we dedicate for well-beings, all sentient beings. For example, we can dedicate for all people or all sentient beings who are sick to recover quickly, all sentient beings who have obstacles to be clear of their obstacles. Of course, if you have certain individual, you can keep them their name, remember them, but otherwise in general, anyone who is going through obstacle in their life, all the sentient beings who have passed away, for them to have a better and a higher rebirth, and then of course, for once and all sentient beings to cultivate the bodhicitta mind, to achieve enlightenment, and then bringing the wisdom that the prayer that Lama Zopa Rinpoche and also many other prayers has that, So you do more extensive in all of that, Normally we can just dedicate to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, or to bodhicitta to arise quickly. So when you do extensive, you do for all those different peoples or different sentient beings who are experiencing different things, some obstacles, some sick, some pass away, somehow having other issues. So you specifically think about them, not only just individually who and they are going through, but everyone who might be going through, and so then you do that more extensive in that way. Yeah. Any others? Otherwise, then we will do the dedications. Before that, then I wish everyone happy holidays. Okay.
Geshe-la, I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
This is Erin. I was just wondering, I think I might have heard that it's possible to take the Bodhisattva vows again from a video from His Holiness or from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Is that possible?
Yeah. If you have already taken before, you can renew even by yourself. You can even without video, you can do yourself in front of the holy objects, your altar. But of course, if there is a video of Lama Zopa, His Holiness, then of course even better, But even without, even someone doesn't have any video and like that, still someone can renew or retake the Bodhisattva vows from your altar. You just visualize the Buddhas and the Gurus, and then repeating after them. When you repeat the 3 times, you visualize you are repeating after them, and then you imagine and visualize. And so the good things about the Bodhisattva vows in terms of renewing is easy to renew, because you can renew by yourself or retake by yourself and thereby renew. So definitely, whereas that is not possible for other vows, you cannot do that by yourself, whether it's the Tantric vows unless you have, done certain retreat, and then you can do certain self-initiation. Then in the part of self-initiation, there is a retaking the Bodhisattva vow, Tantric vows, so that can be done that Either you have to take the initiations yourself, or you have to do the self-initiations, and not anyone can do it. You have to do certain retreat to be able to do that self-initiation. So, but both are vows, you don't have to do that. You can retake and renew. So definitely, absolutely, you can do from His Holiness Dalai Lama or Lama Zopa or anyone, your guru's video.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid and belittled, with the mind weighed down by depressions. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. As long as space remains, or as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you very much. Again, everyone, thank you. Have a wonderful holiday.